Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the NSBE SIG monthly spotlight series. And we are in for a treat today because we have two awesome professionals with us to talk about their experiences and to shed some well valued experiences on their professional career and in NSBE. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and for our two guests today, Tarbin, you could go first. We would like for you to uh, tell your name, your position, company, and industry that you are currently working in.
Thank you very much, Monique. It's a pleasure and an honor to join Leon to be on this discussion today. And I'm really looking forward to it because I think there's something I can learn as well from Leon. My name is Tarbinlam Lafon. I go by Tar, and I'm the Associate Vice President of Indirect Procurement and Operations at Organon Company. And that is a subsidiary of Merck that's going to be spinning off by the end of the first half of 2021 into its own company, and that way in the pharmaceuticals industry. So it's a pleasure speaking with you all, and I look forward to participation here.
All right. Thank you so much. Leon, you are next.
All right, my name is Leon Williams. I am continuous improvement manager at America's Beverage Kroger Manufacturing here in Irving, Texas. And I'm also the acting supply chain manager for our site. So kind of a new role that I'm filling in for, but I do work for the Kroger company. So, and I'm in food and beverage, and I've been with them now for about 16 months. Um, just eager to, like I say, talk to Tar and share what I got.
All right. Thank you so very much. So, our first question for this interview today, which will be on the focus of supply chain management. How did both of you get into this line of work? Leon, you could go first.
Okay, so kind of indirectly, I got into supply chain. I've worked at various areas of supply chain, being in operations and process and product improvement manager and engineer throughout my career. But most recently, we had a void in our plant where we needed some support, and I do all of the CI work there and all of the green belts, and SMEs report to me. So I basically have been working with our whole value stream from our supplier relationships all the way through to the stores. And so I got asked to come in and be a part of the supply chain organization um, for the manufacturing side. And so that's basically how I got in. So far, it's been kind of drinking out of a fire hose from the aspect of I'm still doing CI work every day, but talking to our suppliers. So as you know, we just had the storm here in Dallas, and it has really been a challenge because you got suppliers who are not up and running fully. So you have those relationships that you got to get suppliers in. How can we get them in, and working with the buyers and the procurement side. So that's basically how I got into supply chain management. I'm looking forward to kind of going down that career path and continuing that, and along with my CI journey. So
Wow, awesome. Thank you for that insight. Tar, how did you get into this line of work?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I have always had an interest in supply chain. My undergrad and my focus in my master's is in supply chain engineering.
Hmm.
And for me, it started, I'm originally from Cameroon, where I was born and raised and partly went to university. And I always wanted to do engineering. There were no engineering programs at the university I went to back home. So I looked abroad and moved to Germany. And while I was in language school in Germany, I wrote back then. You still had to write to universities to learn about their programs. So this was in the mid 90s. I wrote to a bunch of universities, and many of them came back with the engineering programs. One of them was in what they call Wirtschafts Ingenieurwesen, and literally translated into the US standard is industrial engineering. And in Germany, it's really a combination of engineering and business. And that fascinated me. I was sold, and since that time frame, I went down that career, went down that education track, moved to the U.S., completed my studies in industrial engineering, focused on supply chain, and I've literally worked in the industry in various roles: packaging engineering, business customer service operations, logistics, now primarily in procurement over the last 10 plus years. But that has been a space that I've always been interested in, because to me, it allows me to really bring the best of engineering into business and drive value and create solutions and solve problems like that. So
That is outstanding. Just a little side note question, Tyre. So, how long have you lived in the U.S.?
I've been in the US since 1999, November.
Wow,
So going on 21 years now, I'd say. Yeah,
awesome.
right.
I love to hear international stories. That is amazing. We may have to come back to that and maybe have another spotlight on international focus, but we'll put just a little pin in that for now.
Okay.
So back to Leon, what lessons have you learned along the way in your career?
Be flexible. So I've
Mhm.
taken on several roles. The first non-engineering role actually that I had, I was, not expecting to go into operations, was basically compelled to go into operations, become a first line manager. And so just being flexible, getting outside of what I went to school for as a degreed engineer. So, you know, along with be flexible with location. So I've lived, you know, I'm in Texas now. I grew up in Mississippi, went to school in Louisiana, lived in Georgia, Delaware, Philadelphia. I spent time in California. So you got to be flexible if you want to move up. And then also don't get pigeonholed into saying that, okay, I'm only going to be in one industry, because you never know where the next opportunity will be. So I'm back in high speed manufacturing now, but I've worked in aerospace and I worked in banking too. So just being flexible is definitely what I would tell someone.
Awesome words of advice. I have learned those things myself along the way, so I can definitely relate to the flexibility and the just being forward thinking in your next when it comes to deciding on your next role. So Tar, what lessons have you learned along the way in your respective career?
I'll build on what Leon mentioned. I mean, for me, I think a willingness to learn. You're never too old to learn, and school doesn't end when you leave college, right? Um, Being coachable. I'd also say know your value. A lot of times, some of us may sell ourselves short because culturally, we're made to understand that we may never be good enough, or being let's say proud of your accomplishments might be seen in a negative light. So sometimes, especially for us Africans, and I'd say maybe some Asians and others as well, speaking up for what your values are in terms of knowing your value and asking for the right salary or for that promotion or something along those lines might be difficult for you to do because you're just culturally wired differently. So I think knowing your value and being able to speak up the right way is also something I've learned along the way. I'll come back to versatility, but I'll spin it around by saying being versatile, being adaptable as the challenges come, as you take on new roles, which may not always be what you want to do, knowing fully well that you can adjust and be adaptable, because that helps you a long way in your career. That has helped me a long way in my career. Um, I
Very
would say
good.
also being holding others accountable to the degree to which you hold yourself. And as I've grown up in my leadership roles, I hold myself to a very high standard, but also helping my people understand that I'll hold them to that standard has helped them grow as leaders too. What I'd also say is inspect what you expect, right?
Hmm.
Um, this doesn't necessarily mean micromanaging, but it's understanding how you can ensure that people on your teams are delivering on the objectives that you've set for them, or that the organization has set for all of you. Because the challenge I find as I move further away from me doing the actual work to more of me doing the work through teams, and sometimes those teams are 3 levels, 4 levels deep. We need to ensure that we have a good way to follow through and ensure that the people under our teams are driving the value that we expect them to do. Yeah,
Excellent, excellent point. And I would also probably add that communication is important
correct.
in facilitating all of those relationships with
Mhm.
different people in different roles, and making sure that the job gets done in the end.
That is right. That is correct.
All right. So if you would have to give yourself advice, um, thinking back to your younger self, if you were to give your more mature self now, what advice would that be? And I'm coming at that question from the point of some of our collegiate students or 1 to 5 year professional career professionals. They may be kind of treading water, trying to figure out what their next move is. Leon, go ahead with that one.
Wow. So I'm trying to think back that far. Seems like a lifetime ago. But one of the things I would say is network, 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 right?
Mhm.
So when you're in college, you got your campus, you got your people that you're in your local chapter with, and you have an idea of what you think you want to do. Because we go to school, for instance, I went to school and I thought I was going to be a chemical engineer. I thought I was going to come out, work for an oil company, um, and you know, then that was going to be it. So research what all opportunities are out there when it comes to your field, and don't be afraid to take assignments. I know so many of my classmates were afraid to move to different places, and those that were not have done great, and the ones that stuck locally, they did great too. But don't be afraid of the challenge of moving somewhere else. I know a lot of times, like Tar said, he moved to Germany. I couldn't imagine that 17, 18, 19, 20, 30 years old moving to Germany, right? But it's turned out great for him. So, you definitely want to keep your options open at all times, and then continue to learn. So I learned about Lean Six Sigma, honestly, kicking and screaming, because I didn't want to do it. I thought it was more just straight statistics, and I didn't want to do it. I wanted to go into operations and stay in operations, and thankfully I had people that pushed me to say, "Hey, man, this is the next wave. This will be used in every industry that you'll ever imagine." And now if you think about it, we got finance that uses it, healthcare, all these different industries that you could take the skill set. If you decide that one day I don't want to be in a plant anymore, I want to go and work in the office, you can take those skills and people will pay you for them. They're always looking for engineers, business people that have Lean and Six Sigma backgrounds and quality backgrounds. So I would just say, don't get pigeonholed into one way of thinking. Keep your options open, network, and be flexible to move around while you're young.
Awesome. Very awesome words of wisdom. Tara, what would you like to add to that?
I'd say, in addition to all of that, because I fully agree with what Leona said, the one thing that stands out to me, particularly in the procurement space, is understanding what is important to the business, right? What is the business? What problems are they trying to solve through the supply base, or what value are they trying to create, or what competitive edge can you bring in as a procurement professional outside the basic things of driving savings, compliance, um, making sure that you've got the right degree of supply and all whatnot. It's really understanding what's important for the business and then going after it and doing it or excelling with it, because ultimately that helps them see that you are a value driver, you are a strategic partner to them, you understand what their needs are, and those things will help you grow in your career. I've had the opportunity to be tapped into various roles, not because they saw me as the one best suited for the next role, but they saw me as somebody who could find the problem and address it. Or if I didn't know the answer myself, bring the right people to the table,
Yes.
address it, right? So I think it's in addition to everything Leon said, having that mindset, but also having an enterprise mindset. So the more time you spend in that procurement space, you begin to realize that in some instances you probably know more about the business than the person you're engaging with on the stakeholder side or on the functional side, because they have a specific function that they've been performing for quite a long time. You in procurement, you don't have that depth of knowledge, but you have a breadth you can see across the board and say, oh, when I did this here, these were the issues that they faced. So I could, carry that over and help solve problems on this side. And that enterprise mindset, bringing others in, connecting the dots across the organization, brings value to many teams. So those two things I'd add to what Leon has mentioned, which I fully agree with.
All right, great, great. So, Tara, to add to that,
Mhm.
when you think about the contributions that you have put into your profession, into your chosen career, what do you think has been your greatest contribution?
I would build on what I just said. I think my greatest contribution when I look at the leaders who've afforded me opportunities to grow, what they've consistently told me is that I've been able to understand the need and either met that need or exceeded that need in a very collaborative way of working. I think to me, that has been a common thread through most of the roles that I've had in supply chain, whether it's in packaging engineering or in logistics or in business process reengineering within the customer service operations environment or in procurement, driving exceeding savings, turning around challenging teams, turning around challenging initiatives that were started by somebody else, but I was brought in to kind of move those around, transforming organizations, leading teams through ambiguity with the right degree of calm. I think what stands out is understanding the need, but meeting and exceeding it most importantly. I think that to me has been my greatest contribution, regardless of the role that I've taken.
Outstanding, outstanding. So, Leon, what would you think of your greatest contribution to your chosen career? How would you define that?
I would say team building and coaching and also collaboration. So I'm thinking about my current role, and I went from, looking at projects and what we can save and, coaching, yellow belts, green belts, and mentoring black belts to now I'm talking to truck drivers who saying, hey man, if you can just help me to get my loads out, an hour earlier so I can get on the road, get back to my family. But being able to teach them like, okay, this is why things are not happening the way they are, but we're going to work on that. We're putting things in place, but meeting people where they are, whether you're talking to, a group of stakeholders or you're talking to a group of managers, be the same personality wise with them as you would someone that's on the floor, some of my, people that I work with on the floor, because we all have to have the vision that we're here to make the bottom line, right? So for me, being in this manufacturing space, we don't make money if food doesn't get off the shelf, and food has to get there, and we got to make it. We got to make it safely. We got to have, you got food safety issues and quality issues because we don't want anyone to get sick. So, combining all of that together and letting folks know what that common vision is, keeping that as the focus in the forefront. Look, what you're doing here on this machine is just as valuable as what I'm doing in the office, is just as valuable as the people in the procurement, the buyers that are buying the raw materials and getting it to the stores. Because ultimately, like you said, that's how we, our bottom line, that's how we get paid. And if everybody understands that, then things go a whole lot smoother. So I try to always keep a collaborative attitude and answer questions where I know and teach where I can. So it may be something as simple as helping mechanics do a standard work exercise on something that's giving them problems, and folks will say, well, why are you doing that instead of some of the people on your team where they asked me to, and I don't turn down people because of position. So that's what I would just say my contributions have been so far in my career.
Awesome, awesome. So, leading into my next question, when you think about your strengths and opportunities for doing more in your chosen career, or thinking about your next place where you may be headed, what do you think? What are your strengths and opportunities? So, Leon, what's your take on your greatest strengths and opportunities, where your career is now and where you expect your career to grow?
Strength wise, I've always been a person that wants to learn. So I don't consider myself an expert Even though some people that I work with consider me to be an expert in lean tools and all of that. So I'm always trying to learn. And that's kind of how I got into the supply chain space, because I had an interest of wanting to learn how that ties back into what my previous experiences were. So, and then also just sometimes you're not gonna get as Tar talked about earlier, your value, right? So sometimes you're gonna have to take even even assignment to learn before you can truly show them what your value is. So don't be afraid to get in there and dig deep. And that's how I am. I'm gonna get in when I ask questions, and I'm gonna get to the bottom of the things that I want to learn. I'll say my opportunities has been, or still is, enjoy the successes. So many times in our careers, we look at what went wrong, what can I do better, instead of saying, you know what, that was really, really good, and let me enjoy that moment and then get back to it. Like, don't dwell in it, but at the same time, get back to it. Most of the time we can tend to look at it and say, you know what, I didn't get that promotion, but you did a lot of great projects that year. So enjoy those successes. And I think about this last year, it's been about a year when we first had our first case of COVID in our plant, and all year we've been dealing with that. And my staff, we were sitting there, our staff members at the plant, they just were looking at like, well, we didn't hit this metric, we didn't hit that metric. And I said, but you know what? We ship product out every day. We had one COVID death in our plant. We minimized it and people were safe. Let's celebrate that. So, those are the opportunities, I would say, because like I said, you can get tunnel vision and you can look at how things didn't go, but celebrate when you can. And with those phases, just get better with them.
Outstanding. Tara, what would you like to add for your greatest strengths and opportunities as far as your career?
When I look back in my recent career, because obviously I'm in the last probably couple of roles, they've been primarily people management roles, where obviously I've had to do work myself, but really driving the work through teams. And for me, what has stood out has been helping people understand the big picture.
Yes.
Understanding where we want to go as a department, as a function, as an organization, and translating that appropriately so people all understand kind of what is my role in that journey, right? But then also being able to get into the weeds when necessary, being comfortable with the weeds so that you can help solve problems, remove blockers, solution with the teams. I think that ability to modulate between the strategy, the vision, and things like that, and then coming down into the weeds and saying, how do we execute and how do we break this into small chunks that you take, and who do we need enterprise-wide to be able to do that? That, I'd say, has been something that I have come to understand that leadership values in me as a strength. Opportunity-wise, I think my opportunities have changed as I've taken different roles. The opportunities I had to watch out for when I was an individual contributor are completely different now than when I'm a leader, right? And in this leadership, in this current role, which is a recent role for me as of February of this year, it is multiple fold. I think those opportunities are now around how do we drive enterprise value by setting the right vision, the right mission and strategy, and alongside the leadership team, and ensuring that all levels of the organization understand that well, and that is multiple layers down. The second is creating and promoting the appropriate governance and culture, to the ability to empower people and make sure that they can drive towards those expected outcomes, empowering them at the right levels. As an individual contributor, sometimes you don't realize how important that is, but as a leader, then you begin to see the tone you set, ripples through the organization, and that can help sometimes be a blocker or a builder of people. Some people will leave the organization if the right governance and culture is not there, right? I think the other thing is ensuring that we've got fit for purpose processes and tools that facilitate the way we work. Those are not my problems, honestly speaking. What type of systems do we use and all whatnot, and do they enable the work or do they slow people down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, last two would be hiring people, the right people,
Yeah.
providing the right motivation by getting out of their way. That's what it is, and sometimes, right, and letting them really be there because you hired them to do the work, right? But then when they need you to solve problems, being able to be there to help them solve those
Right.
problems. And then lastly, and most importantly for me, is creating the right level of succession planning. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
I, as a leader, was developed by many other leaders before me, and I grew. And when I grew, I left holes in the organization that other
Right.
people had to fill. And they had to watch out for that. And to a certain degree, I began to watch out for that as I grew as well, to say, okay, you've done something good. Who is going to now take that on and move it to a different level? And
Mm-hmm.
that's not my problem. To say, okay, I look at the organization, we're hiring the right people. Hopefully, these people are going to grow. As they grow and they become new leaders who emerge, who then gets to fill those roles? So having the right succession planning in place. These are things I didn't worry about 15 years ago, right? So my
Right.
opportunities now are different given the challenges I'm facing or the roles that I'm in. Yeah.
Very, very good points. So my last question, and I'll start with Leon with this question. Briefly, how did you get involved in NSBE, and how has the organization helped to elevate your career?
So I got involved with NSBE in '98. I was a transfer student to Louisiana Tech University. I played a couple years of football, transferred over, and was just walking around on campus one day. And one of my classmates was like, "Man, we got a NSBE meeting." I was like, "What is NSBE?" And it was like, "Man, that's where, all the black engineers get together, man. We got pizza and everything." I said, "Oh, you got food? Cool. I'm there." So so I went to the first meeting and I got involved with the PCI, the local PCI chapter there in Ruston, and it just stuck. And I went from there and I continued on. When I got my first job, I moved to Augusta, Georgia. Didn't know anybody there, but the plant that I was in, they had a NSBE. I guess NIS professional now, but it was alumni chapter back then in 2000, and they were telling me about these PDCs and getting ready to go to Chicago and all this stuff. And I'm like, man, all right, I'm in. And so I got involved there, and and always have served in some capacity up till I basically got married and had these kids and stuff. So how has it helped my career? So one of the things I would always say is you're gonna learn a few things in this, right? So what I was just actually telling a little mentee of mine who he's an Hispanic kid, but he was in SHIP,
Mm-hmm.
and we were just talking, and he said, "Man, I remember you telling me just go get involved." One thing about NSBE, you're gonna serve. Um, so if you're not a servant person, you're gonna kind of stick out like a sore thumb. And so that's one of the things that I've taken. Even though I was doing community service and things of that nature, but doing a walk for education back years ago, and even just mentoring, our youth. But the other thing is, you get an opportunity to meet some great people. I remember serving on the AEB, and we had to do these presentations. In the first meeting that I had with them, everybody had these elaborate presentations, and I wasn't really used to putting all this stuff together. And parliamentary procedures, what's that? Robert's rule. I'm just looking around. So I mean, you get a chance to meet some really great people, and you get a chance to actually lead. Some of us, until we get to serve on a board, you're an individual contributor. You don't get to run a committee or anything else. You're just trying to make a paycheck and get your next promotion, but you're not really getting that, you're not getting any leadership qualities at all. And if you're lucky enough to have a mentor, that's great. So in this, but you're gonna have a mentor. I'm not gonna say who some of mine are on here, Monique. Know who they are, know how they act. So I was blessed to meet some of them and others, but you just get that opportunity to kind of grow and be yourself while learning some of those leadership skills. I could go on, but I'm gonna stop right here.
Yes, indeed. I can concur with all of that. How did you get involved in NSBE, and in what ways do you think the organization has helped elevate your career?
I think for me, it's a bit different in the sense that when I moved to the US back in '99, I transferred to New Jersey Institute of Technology. There was a local chapter on campus, and being new to the US and kind of really coming in as a transfer student from abroad, not knowing many people, it helped create a community for me. I think, I was involved in many associations on campus: the Industrial Engineering Institute of Industrial Engineering, the African Students Association, AFSA, back then, and there were NSBE chapter members in those organizations, and they were the ones who really helped me understand the value of NSBE, and ultimately I joined NSBE on campus to really build relationships. Having that support system, understanding the US for me was a challenge at the beginning, I have to say, growing up in Cameroon and then living in Europe. And those were the values that I really learned at NSBE, helping me really understand the US, but seeing what Black engineers could do together, doing projects on campus, and leveraging that organization for mentorship. I think as I moved into my career, I'll be very honest with you, because it's been the case with some of my engineering friends as well. I kind of fell off NSBE. I fell off most of the organizations that I was part of, focused on really building my career. I think in discussions with Camila over the last couple of years, and most of it was really last year, it really fomented the need for me to be active again and to rejoin, but then do it in a way where now I can give back. I can really focus on serving as a role model while I learn and continue to understand the organization as it's evolved, but really making sure that we are there. And you can see my son crashing again. We are there to help others grow and making sure that there's a pipeline for young people like him as well, and ensure that as they become their own engineers or wherever they end up, that they value organizations like this. I think that's where to me, the connection now is and the focus now is on.
Yeah. Well, on behalf of the NSBE Process Improvement SIG and other professionals, I just would like to thank you for your time today and for your words of wisdom, and just celebrate as we have come to the last few days of celebrating African American History Month. I think it's important that we highlight our trailblazers in the organization that have done good things and continue to give back, and have little ones you're shaping their pipeline through, their careers as well as they get older and grow up and realize their own dreams and successes. So we want to thank you, and we appreciate your time here today to have yet another episode of Spotlight of our supply chain management focus. And this was our Spotlight for March 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you.